Welcome to Draw Process, this weekly series. I'm drawing page 8 of First Son and Sword, my sword and sorcery book, today. This is the page you'll see me do in the time lapse, and I'll be providing commentary while you see that. We have our main character's sword and his apprentice Farah. They're having a little discussion. She's feeling wary of this village while they're trying to relax, and Sun is dancing with the villagers with a girl that invited him to, and then we see a performer appear, really drawing attention to himself. So I've got that at the bottom of the panel. And you'll notice he's holding a snake. So there's something we're weaving in the mystery of, okay, there's the snake that's attacking the boys that they save, and then they come to this village, and now they're dancing and doing kind of a snake dance. They're kind of dancing in a way that with their hands forward and their head down, they're kind of snake-like in the dance even. So weaving in more questions, more interest. And in this video, you'll actually see that this is not sped up as quick as some of the video is. I happened to record some of the video in a lower speed, and some of it's even at normal speed. And I thought I'll go ahead and include it in the video so that you can see what it looks like when I'm drawing in real time. So you'll see that in a little bit. This is faster, but probably not sped up as much as normally. And I'd like to say a bit about these talking heads scenes. So they're both facing the same direction, but I want to set the camera up, your view up, as what they call the shot and reverse shot. So without breaking the 180-degree line or rule, as they call it, which basically means that the camera is positioned so that each character is still on their side of the image. So if Farah's on the right, if the camera moved behind them, she would now be on the left, and that would swap their position. It doesn't mean you can never do that, and it's probably more important to film than it is to comic. But I do like to treat panels cinematically. I like you to elicit that kind of animating it in your mind, being aware of the camera, not just aware of that you're watching people, but almost aware of the camera, almost cinematic to some degree. And it will add a little bit of extra effort to the reader if you break that. So I'm trying to maintain that while not crossing that line, but they're facing the same direction. So I've moved the camera to one side. It's kind of the over-the-shoulder shot of her, over her shoulder towards Sword. So she's looking at him, getting ready to, maybe hesitating, considering if she should bring up her concern. Because they're facing the same direction, we're not seeing over her shoulder like from behind. We're really seeing kind of a profile view of her. As she turns to him, now the camera moves to the other side. Now he's more in profile, and we can see that he's looking ahead towards the villagers, the dance and Sun, while she's looking at him. I also like to mess around with where the word balloons go. To me, the word balloons are similar in shape to a head, a figure's head. And the human head, the face, the eyes, these really draw attention naturally. Because like just symbolically, like an infant to an electrical socket, that has the three prongs, it's a little too much like a face. It's a little attractive to them versus flipped upside down, less interesting. So there's something in us where we're just drawn to these shapes. And so I try to treat the balloon a bit like a head, a disembodied head with words in it instead of a face on it. Think of it how you will. But In some comic books, they will put the word balloons simply above the figures' heads. So instead of framing this panel in the way that I have, a balanced cinematic kind of view on the characters, they would leave a lot of headroom above the characters to throw in word balloons. And all of the talking would be up above their heads on another level visually. And I've been experimenting with how can I include the word balloons not on a higher level where you're kind of reading words and then looking at pictures, but in built into the art, into the view that you have, so that you go from a head to a word balloon to another head. They're kind of flowing with each other, and I really like that. It does cause challenges with the balloon tails. You don't want it to like be hard to see the tail. You don't want the balloon or the tail to create tangents. You are covering up your figures with your balloons some, as I did in this middle panel. So you want to be careful with that too. So it creates some challenges, and some people would say errors, things that they think are wrong to do. I'm going to play with that, push the limits here because of the benefits of creating this flow. And so I don't want a sword's head to be interfered with by the balloon tail or the balloon, but I don't mind if his chest is covered up some, right? That's where I'm at with it, and that is different than some people have approached it. But I like it a lot more. I'm enjoying this, trying to flow with the word balloons. Put it where I want your eye to go next. Do I want you to look at the balloon and then the person's face, or the face and then the balloon? And is it positioned where it'll guide you onto the next panel, even? So it'd be incorporated into the flow. Some people, they try to create a flow with the art and leave the balloons on the sides, out of the way of that flow. I see the word balloons as part of the flow, to be incorporated with it and not just tacked on somewhere. I think that makes more sense. Yeah, you'll see how I did the reverse shot again, kind of back to the original shot, but zoomed in more. Which to me even shows it's not only for variety. The first panel and the third panel is almost it's the same angle pretty much, but it's different. But it's not only different because I don't want to like copy and paste the first panel. I'm saying something different. The subject is different. In this third panel, Sword is the one speaking. In the first panel, it's actually Farah turning to look at him, which is more the subject. So the camera had to be back more, but now it's in on him as he's sharing this. So, and we've established enough of the scene in the first panel that I can zoom in more. We can go into more subjective at this point. And then, here's this guy. I made it up on the page, but I knew I wanted someone that striking, a kind of lanky and muscular kind of body, a big furry / feathery headdress thing, and the mask with a little bit snake-like, but not necessarily, and give him kind of like a rattle on a stick. I knew I wanted to give him something, but I wanted something that would make some noise so that he could interrupt what's happening, give him let him arrive into the scene and surprise people. So I just started with just that rattle in the air, and I decided to really make it seem loud, make it seem invasive to what's happening by putting these energy lines radiating off of it. Through these lines, I'm not only drawing attention to it, but I give this impression that it's creating energy. You can't do it with actual sound on a piece of paper, but I can convey energy is emanating out. I'm very much into that as well. Even though my style is a little bit realistic, you could say I do try to, I tend to treat things as energy rather than as objects in themselves. I don't take things literally in that way. If the shadows off of the rocks, if they're supposed to be dancing in the flames, you might notice that over time in a movie. But in an image, you're not able to capture the dancing of the shadows in a photograph. So that's not realistic to try to capture that. But I will intentionally create energy in the line work on the shadows, which gives you the feeling that it's moving, right? So that's another example of how I'm trying to show energy. The way that I did the huts behind them, I had a somewhat of a sense of the layout around the fire here. They're sitting on this log, and there's a row of the huts behind them. Probably theirs is right behind them. And I'm treating it here as simply a texture, just like a wallpaper behind them. But it needs to be somewhat believable. So I'm considering the camera angle, I'm considering like perspective to some degree on the background. I'm keeping the lines simple. The hatching is like in a similar direction for the kind of shadows I'm putting on the sides of these huts. I'm trying to position them in such a way that they're not creating they're not breaking the silhouette of the figures. So like in the first panel, the doorway above Sword's head, if you look at it quickly, it appears to be part of his head. Just like if you let your eyes blur, it's like there's a box on top of his head. Unless you look and notice, oh, that's part of the background. That is kind of like a tangent. So I try to avoid that by precisely where I'm positioning these elements so that they don't hit the face in an odd spot or something. Or I leave a broken line, leave a space. I did that on the second panel better. The doorway, it has a gap between it and his head, just a space, so that you don't group them. So that's occurring. I'm trying to position these things. The doorway above her head in this fourth panel, there's more shadow. It's darker towards the top of the doorway, but as it goes down, I lightened it up, and it's lightened up partly because there's more light. Maybe it's not high up into the shadows of the ceiling of that hut, but also to create a gap so that when I shade in her head, hatch line in her hair, which is dark, a lot of darker lines, it doesn't look, it's not matching the background element. In this panel, I knew that I had this size space to show everyone dancing, and their dance has changed. It's the snake kind of dance here. But I wanted to be able to show the whole scene, an establishing shot in a sense, but also make Sun the subject, show Sun here at this moment. And I wanted it large enough that it's clear what he's up to. And I wanted the girl to be clear next to him, that invited him to dance. So multi-purpose here. So I've got, hints of the fire behind them, and then hints of the other dancers on the other side of the fire with a little bit of the hut texture at the top, right? And there's a lot of figures, and they're very loosely penciled, and they're drawn, also loosely, trying to do it with ease and not putting too much effort into these figures. As I've said, I want to be able to draw complex images the same way I would anything else. Earlier, perhaps in making comics, I could draw two people talking, like in the first row of panels, the first tier there. I could draw people talking, and maybe the background would just be hatching lines with nothing there. But now I'm throwing in hints of the huts behind them, but it still functions just like a hatching line, shadows, blurs behind them. Um, but and now I can also throw in backgrounds that are an entire cityscape or all these figures dancing, and it would be just like throwing in the blurs, the shadows, the hatching lines behind people. Um, and that's because I mean that's a sign of growth for me, that I'm getting more ease with it, more relaxed, more comfortable with just doodling out these figures. Um, and that actually brings me to another point. So I was thinking about how we draw, I guess. To start with, for me, it is a gesture. You could call it gestural drawing with structure. There is some structure in it. It's a rather loose structure. And when I come into ink, that's when I have to choose the final edge of things, the final definition of parts. It isn't always there in the pencils. To be able to draw a gesture from imagination of figures and forms doing things with some structure on it, so that it's not just a loose line. There's kind of a sense of a structure of the body parts, three dimensionality, perspective. If you capture that with your gesture, uh, and then you just build some details on top of it, you're arriving at a functional comic book. It's above stick figures, but it's not all the way up there at like really careful structured figure drawing, where you might measure parts and really build all the structure underneath for everything. When I've got all these figures in the background, I'm not going to build thorough anatomy and cylinders and structure for them, and thoroughly position things in perspective by, like, let's say drawing out a grid and making sure everything's accurate. You're going by gesture, but you still want your gestures to have some amount of structure, and like, so that they're three-dimensional, they have depth and so on. And it becomes more and more like drawing stick figures, and it gets easier and easier to do. I just saw, Fabio Moon's Substack post where he's talking about his simple pencil drawing that he does digitally, and how he's getting where he can just lay down exactly what he wants and then ink it. And for him, it's a really simple gesture drawing. And then you still see that in the final inks. The inks are almost the same. It captures the same gesture. There's not much anatomy, not too much structure and depth, but enough. And it's when the final lines and not just lines but color and solid black areas and so on, when they capture that gesture, then the energy is retained, the purity is retained, what you're communicating is retained. Makes me think of faces. If someone pulls up a photograph of a smile, and they use that as reference for their character when they smile, like they're just drawing the reference exactly. Sometimes those comics, the acting looks fake. It looks stiff. Part of it is that the photo references are not nuanced enough of expressions for what the people should be feeling in that moment. But sometimes it's like uncanny valley. The expression is too accurate for what a smile really is, and so we lose the impact of it. Whereas if you just drew a smiley face, like a literal simple lined smiley face, it gets an emotional reaction from someone. They can see, oh, big smile here, right? So you need a blend of the two, I think. You're looking for, okay, this is like realistic or literal, and yet I'm trying to make a smile. Can I bring the lines up? Can I invest a little extra exaggeration or gesture into things, which will come naturally when you start from the gesture. So that's actually it for today. We're on the end already. Here's the finished page. You'll see how this last dancer, his figure is kind of popping out of the panel, popping off the page. A little more contrast on him than the background. That turned out really nicely, and I wasn't sure how it would turn out, but very very alive down there, which is great. That's just what I needed at that moment. So that's it for this week. Have fun doing your art, doing your practice, and thinking in new ways about it. I'll see you next week.